Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts, the host of the Whole Triathlete Podcast, doing a special edition post-Ironman recovery and repair session for our podcast. And for the first episode, I'm having Mark Allen and his son, Matt, on the show today to talk about their Ironman experience. Hi, guys.
Hi, Debbie. Hey, Debbie.
Hey. So we were just in Hawaii a week ago, and it feels too long ago. And Matt's did his first Ironman Hawaii, and Mark Allen obviously has done a few Ironman Hawaiis and is now the triathlon coach that is training Mr. Matt. So I want to talk first, Matt, how did you get into doing triathlons and Ironman? Did you have this pressure growing up from having amazing athletic parents, and how did it all begin?
I don't know. I think it was kind of a slow progression of things. Long story short, I just had the time, and it always been kind of this loose idea, this loose, bucket list item I thought would be really cool, but never really had concrete plans to do. And I actually had kind of taken a break from work, and I had gone on a long backpacking trip, and kind of got home and realized how much I missed being outside and being active. Because I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, which it was like a 3.5 month, backpacking trip through the Western United States. And finishing that up, I had this void in my life, really, of just missing being active every day. And I also was currently unemployed, which definitely makes it a little easier to commit to things like an Ironman. And I was like, well, this is as good a time as any. And honestly, it was kind of an excuse to not really try and jump back into serious work. But kind of what started as just this bucket list item is something I kind of fell in love with. I really fell in love with the training, and obviously I had some good guidance along the way and some good connections within the sport to kind of help me along. But yeah, I kind of just fell in love with it.
When was your first Ironman? Was that last year?
Yeah, last September. I went over to South Korea with my mom because she had become involved with Ironman Gure over there, and they actually invited me over and covered my travel expenses. And yeah, so that was my first race.
So did you feel pressure at all to do a race? Did it make you nervous knowing that, you have these famous triathlon parents? Did it make you feel worried at all, or were you a confident athlete at the starting line?
I wasn't super nervous, I guess. I was as nervous as anyone is when they're towing the line for their first Ironman. It's definitely an intimidating experience on a lot of levels, but I never really felt a ton of pressure to live up to my parents' standards by any means. That there's obviously part of me that, wants to compare myself to them, but with the parents I have, it's kind of like, what's the point? They're in their own universe. And so there was no expectation that I was going to go out, especially not, my first Ironman, to go be, going racing at the same level as them. So it's that was almost off the table.
Well, that's easier. So you did Ironman last year, and you qualified for Ironman Hawaii at that race. And then did you hire Mark Allen coaching to help you out for that race, or was that just for Ironman Hawaii?
Well, given my unemployed budget, I was, I took all the help I could get. But yeah, certainly, talked to my dad, and he set me up with one of his coaching programs. And it's a little challenging, I think, to listen to your parents' advice all the time. as a kid, but I think it ended up being a little bit more free form. I wasn't the best at sticking to the program. Partly with work, I kind of had a work schedule that was unpredictable, so my training required a bit of flexibility as it is, and I think I was less interested in having this regimented program and more just excited to go out and do what felt good on the day. And it's like, well, I feel like going for a long bike ride today, so I went for a long bike ride.
Go with what you felt like, what your body was telling you what to do.
Yeah.
So let's go to the other side of the table here. So Mark Allen, you have a son that started doing triathlons. And then you started racing last year. Did you feel, any interest in helping him, or just wanted to kind of let him explore the triathlon world on his own?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty exciting that he wanted to just see what he could do, see if he could finish an Ironman. We went to South Korea. I don't think I've really ever put any kind of athletic pressure on him, or really any pressure as far as being a super achiever at anything, just trying to support him to, do the things that he loves to do and that he's drawn to and has a passion for. Mm-hmm. And however I can help. Obviously with triathlon, I have a little bit of experience with that. Swung him a sweet deal for that coaching program that he got. And, just try to just be there and be available as a resource, because it was pretty clear, like he was saying, that there's just no way that he was going to look at the program every day and stick to it just because of his work schedule, and because he's 24. It's like, hey, I feel like I'm tired today, or I really feel like I got the energy today, I'm going to go do whatever. And that's fine. You can do a lot of that when you're 24. It took me a while to actually kind of fall into a little bit more structure with my training. It was pretty haphazard and loose the first couple of years that I trained. I just kind of had a general idea what I was going to do. And then each day it was sort of like, oh, let's see, no, I don't feel like doing that today. Let me do something else. But as things progressed closer to Kona, he and I definitely had more interaction and more, he had a lot more questions. And I think because at that point, obviously, you have this feeling like there's a little more on the line going to the Ironman World Championship maybe than just going to Ironman South Korea just to see if you can do the distance and see what the experience is like. So it was definitely a step up, from the effort and energy he put in getting ready for Kona, and it was a step up for sure. And the help that I was trying to give him to get ready for it.
I bet. So Matt, was it a surprise for you when you qualified for Ironman Hawaii, or was that kind of something you knew you could do and believed in yourself to qualify?
I definitely believed it was possible. It's such an unknown, I guess, as far as doing your first Ironman. Just I've been around the sport enough, and not from a competitor standpoint, but I've been to the Ironman World Championships quite a few times with my parents, and had front row seats to watching some really incredible athletes crumble and fall apart. And so it's if a pro can all of a sudden end up walking the marathon, then certainly me, an undertrained 24-year-old who has zero experience, can definitely have a rough day out there. So it never really was a given, but I definitely thought it was within my ability.
So what does Ironman Hawaii mean to you, both of you? I know, Mark, we've done many podcasts in the past, but Matt's being there as with your family and watching the race, to being a participant in the 40th anniversary. And it felt like a really special year being there on the sidelines. What did it feel like to you on race day this year at Ironman Hawaii for your first time?
I think there were a lot of different aspects to it. I mean, a big part of it was, this culmination of all this energy and time and training that I had put into this. And also beyond myself, I've had a lot of support from my, friends and family, and some different, companies have, contributed to my my race, and my girlfriend has definitely been my emotional support crew, and so it was this big culmination for me personally, just based on how much time and energy that I'd put into it. And there's the other aspect of just, in some sense, following my parents' footsteps, and not necessarily that I have goals to be what they were, but just to really experience something that was such a huge part of both of their lives. And in some ways, it's like I'm getting to know them in a way that I didn't before. And so, I mean, that's a really special experience. You get a little bit of a sense just being in Kona for Ironman week. You get to feel the energy that race brings, but to actually be there with the intention of racing is just a whole nother experience.
Yeah, definitely. I wrote a blog the other day about it, how it's like Christmas Eve, before Christmas or before the race day, and then the race day is just so much excitement, and just watching it, you get goosebumps and teary eyes, and just it's like Christmas morning, just all this work you guys as athletes, everyone puts in, and everyone involved in the event puts in for months and months and months, and then it's just one day, and then like this week is just kind of this post-race depression feeling. That's like so exciting for everyone. So going back to Mark, a question: when you're coaching a client that happens to be your son, do you have to change how you kind of process things, or how you give him coaching tips and suggestions because he is family member?
Not really. I've just give people the best advice I can based on what based on what's going on with them. If they have a question, or if they seem to be needing a specific area sort of fine tune more, and that they don't have the answer to it. So whether it's a client or whether it's, Matt, the way I coach is the same. For sure, I have a much more intimate dynamic with Matt because he's my son. So, we can hang out and talk for 4 hours and just go really deeply into a particular topic. So I know I gave him a lot more information than I would say a client who we have an email communication, but you're not face to face. So yeah, it's different. But if he was, a client that lived here in Santa Cruz and we were getting together, the advice would be the same, because you're really talking about how to get fit, how to get your mind in the right place, preparing somebody to be ready to manage stuff that either they didn't think they were going to have to or hadn't even thought of before in the race. And so race day was, leading into it this year for sure was different for me than all these past years since I retired, because going into the race kind of as a brand ambassador for Ironman, I have all these obligations and things that I do, but this year, it's like I could see Matt's going through these little shifts each day as the race got closer, and it's like, oh boy, I remember that too, and oh, I remember that too, and like checking your nutrition 5 times and checking your bike 10 times and getting that last little adjustment on the brake or the gears or whatever it is. It's like, I'll be honest, I don't miss that part because it is kind of nerve-wracking, like there's this tension. But he was, especially for his first one, he was super calm, on the grand scale of things, I thought, going into it. For me on race day, once the gun went off, it's like, okay, it's in his hands. There was nothing that I was really worried about at all, the swim and the bike. But when it came to the marathon, I just know what can happen. And so, when it's your own son, it's like every second that he's out there, I'm thinking, okay, how's he doing? And they have the trackers now, so you can get these little snippet reports, and so if things look like things are going well, then it's like, all right, I know how that feels. And if it looks like, oh, he's having to slow down, it's like, ooh, I know what that feels like too. And so, I felt like I was kind of vicariously going through that whole experience with him, and for sure it was very special and unique for me to greet him at the finish line, because that's the first time that I've had a family member cross the line like that. And so it was just great to be able to be there, and to, there was like this raw emotion that you have as an athlete when you come across the line, and then also when you're somebody connected to that athlete, like, he and I are father and son. There's just this real raw emotion of elation, and that raw emotion of how tough it was, and the journey that it took to get there. There's so much wrapped up in it when somebody crosses the line.
Yeah, that was, I shared that video you put together, the pictures, and it sure, everyone crosses the finish line. It's magical, but I'm sure it just looked differently with you seeing your son cross the finish line. You couldn't be out really on the course all day, could you? Because you had to be, once the pros were coming in, you had to be back behind the finish line for the meet and greet.
I wasn't actually out on the course at all. I mean, I was like everybody else. I was watching the Facebook watch with Ironman, and in the transition areas, obviously, when guys and gals were coming in and going out, and trying to catch as much of that as I could. But I didn't actually get out on the course. So it was, so I was following it just like everybody else electronically, and vicariously, and just waiting and hoping, and, sending them good energy.
So Mats, what did it feel like to you when you were coming down Pelini Hill? I just wrote a story about that, but I did the race many years, and that was my favorite part, when you just turned that corner off the Queen K. And how did the finish feel like for you, your first time, and going down the finish chute and seeing your dad?
Obviously, once you make that turn, since basically downhill to the finish, it certainly feels like you're close. I feel like there's different milestones, but throughout the race. But yeah, that when turning down, Puani is definitely feels like you're at the finish, and the most prominent feeling at that point is just relief, because it's for me personally, this year was not. Well, I don't think really anyone has an easy day out there, but it certainly was not. My ideal race. The run was pretty rough, and so I was just relieved to be getting to the finish. And I think the actual finish, especially, it was really intense, especially with my parent, with my dad and some other family, and my girlfriend and some friends, and it was just an incredibly emotional experience, kind of a lot in different ways. There's part of me that is just so grateful, to be there and to be finishing, and to get, to accomplish this goal that's, was really the base goal, was to finish Ironman Hawaii, and I accomplished that. And it feels like this sense of gratitude for being able to just get there. And I was incredibly, happy for sure. And also there was kind of this other side of things that I put a lot of time and energy into this, and it didn't necessarily go the way I wanted it to. And that was also equally emotional and hard to manage. And I was feeling really, really sad about that, and disappointed and kind of heartbroken. And also there's a lot of emotion there that's not really quantifiable. There's not a word to put to it. It's just this massive release. It's like you're able to exhale for the first time in months. And being, especially, leading into this kind of race, it's like with such a finite number of racing opportunities, each one is, really intensified. And so it's, you're, at least for me, I was always, nervous about, getting good enough sleep, and, making sure you're eating enough for the right things, and you're exercising. And every time you have a little twinge, a little pre-race niggle, it's like, can feel like the end of the world. And you get, I got all paranoid. So it's like, all of a sudden I don't really have to worry about anything. And that was huge for me. and the floodgates were open when, finishing, crossing that line and, hugging my dad, and, the full on waterworks were in effect. I think
It is
on both
emotional.
sides.
Well, it is very emotional. I think that's the magic of people watching the finish line, because you kind of can feel it. There's that energy around, and it's just, you want to remember that feeling as well, because I know it's like, I was thinking of it as when I got proposed to for my husband to get married, that can I do that again? Can I just go back and you can ask me that again? It's like you cross the finish line. Can I just go through and experience that from the tree on my magic tree? Just feel that feeling again and not forget it. But that's what I was writing in one of my other stories this last couple of weeks, was that once you have done that, crossed that finish line and felt that magical experience and had that moment on the freeway, the Queen K with Madame Pele, and all the spiritual connection you get with the island, that it doesn't ever leave you. Even though I haven't been able to race for 5 years, it still brings me back to the island, and you still feel that power and that energy from you, the athlete, and from just the whole triathlon community.
Oh yeah, the community is absolutely huge. I mean, a friend of mine, one of my childhood friends, he was there watching me and supporting me, and it was his first time seeing Ironman Hawaii, and he actually had a really interesting comment about the crowd. I mean, there's, in every sporting event, people cheer, obviously, but the way he described it is like, it's very different when you're at a baseball game or a football game or something like that. The fans, they're all cheering, but it's almost like this communal cheering. It's like, oh, we won the game, we made it, we got a home run or whatever it is. And in Hawaii, it's not like you're cheering for something about yourself. It's like you're purely cheering for the people coming across those lines. And it's like this very like selfless cheering. It's like everyone is so emotional, excited for the people coming across the line, and it has absolutely nothing to do with themselves. And it's a really unique experience, especially being on the receiving end of that, as you cross that line.
That is for sure. So Mark, what are some big coaching tips you gave your son before the race, the night before, the week before? And then Matt's, what are the big ones that you remembered while you were racing?
Probably the biggest one, and it's one that I give all my clients who go to Kona. I just said, give it a strong effort, a solid effort. It's like a strong training day, but try not to feel like you're racing till you get about 10 miles to go in the marathon. And, we had a lot of contingency plans as far as if nutrition didn't seem to be working right or whatever. And, cause that's the hardest part, I think, to get right on race day. And just to be ready to regroup, you got to regroup out there. It's not, doesn't matter if you're first across or last across. You have moments where it may seem like, ooh, I don't know if I can make it, or, oh, my dream doesn't seem achievable. So you have to regroup and refocus and sort of relaunch. So I try to just give a lot of, thoughts like that, and hopefully some of them stuck. I don't know.
Which ones do you remember, Matt? When you said the run was tough, was there something on there or on the bike that made you keep on going, keep your head in the game?
That's what my dad was talking about. Is about how it's never really over till it's over. Things can always shift. So even if it doesn't matter how bad you're feeling, there's always that potential for it to shift, and things can come back together and you can feel better. And that's certainly something that happens out there. You can, just because you're feeling bad 1 second doesn't mean that's going to be how you're going to feel for the rest of the race. And I think everybody experiences those waves, and it's just important to remember that it's all kind of part of the process.
Have you read or gone to the workshops for Fit Body, Fit Soul?
Yeah, I have. I've been to a number of those.
So I always think that would help an athlete when they're in Ironman, or especially Hawaii Ironman. Some of those lessons. Yeah,
I think one of the biggest things you can learn is just how to kind of quiet your mind a little bit. it's not always the most helpful thing to be running through every different part of, like, how does this feel? How does that feel? Am I, obviously you want to be focused and not, forget some things like nutrition and all that. But at some points it's way more, seems like it's way more productive or way easier to just be quiet and not think too much and almost go into a meditative state while you're out there. It's like it's not focus on one thing too much.
Yeah. So Mark, what do you think? Are you learning anything?
Yeah. I mean, Matt said there was that release, across the line. And I think for me, watching and cheering for him, on the track, or I think the last split you get before they get to the finish line is around I think it's 1.5 miles from the finish. And he was holding a pace that he'd been going for a little stretch there. So it was like finally the moment that I knew that, okay, he's actually going to make it to the finish line, because, like Matt said, that's not a given. It doesn't matter how fit you are. It's not a given that you're going to cross that line. And so ultimately I knew that was the biggest goal to try to achieve out there. And when I finally felt like, yes, he's going to make it, then it was like just this huge relief for me, this release, like, okay.
You can breathe.
Yeah. Now I can breathe. Now all I have to do is just stand here and wait for him and cheer him across.
Yeah. It's a long day for everybody. So now that the race is over, you had a little vacay in Hawaii after the race. What's the off season look like? What does Coach Mark Allen say for recovery, repair, and off season training?
I mean, I think it's especially when you feel like you have a more perfect race in you, or it feels like, it's really easy to just try and jump right back into it and start thinking about, okay, well, maybe there's this race in a month, and there's this 10K I want to maybe do, and a marathon in March that I want to race, and it's like, I got to start my training and all this stuff, and it's like really easy to get caught back up in that that energy of it. And I think one thing he's really emphasized is to just
book. And you can read my book about that. It's called Life's Not a Race. That's what I did.
Yeah, I told Matt's got back on Thursday night, so whatever that is, 4 or 5 days after the race, and we were up chatting about it and sort of going over the whole thing, and he was planning, kind of throwing these ideas out of what he could do next. And finally I just said, give yourself at least 2 weeks before you make any kind of a decision or plan or strategy of what that next thing will be for you, because you have to get distance from the really raw emotion of how you're feeling right in this moment. And it takes a little while for that to settle so that you can actually start to see things clearly. And it's interesting because I've had at least 4 or 5 of the other athletes who did the race that I coach contact me with almost exactly the same questions, the same possibilities. Well, there's this 10K, and then this is, it's like, let's talk in 2 weeks. Give yourself distance from that race. Let your body relax. Let your body recover. And that's such an important part of the whole cycle of getting fit. You lay the base, and then you do your speed work, and then you do some races, and you finally taper down for that big one at the end of the season. And then you really do have to give yourself a physical break from that huge structure of training that you do, but also to give yourself sort of emotional space between the intensity that you feel in that last moment of the last race of the season before you start to plan what's coming next. Otherwise you just won't be clear. And so that part of recovery is so underrated, I think. And so, if I could, and I've given all the people the same advice that I gave Matt, and it's like, no, you got to give yourself at least 2 weeks. Get some distance, let the emotions settle a little bit. And then you'll start to see that, oh yeah, maybe those 5 races weren't the best idea to get myself right back in. Maybe I do need a little bit of a break. And actually it feels good to just go out and do stuff because I just want to be outside and get in a little fresh air, but not because I'm trying to, achieve another goal the week after Ironman. So,
right. Well, it was funny because the week leading into Ironman, I was so ready to not have anything structured. Like I was so ready to be done. Like, I mean, I still was looking forward to racing, but I just wanted to be on the other side of that. And it's funny how the tables turn so quickly, and a couple days later, you're all rearing to go.
Yeah, well, just give you motivation. 2012 was my last Ironman Hawaii, and I did 70.3 Worlds in September, then Ironman Hawaii in October. Then I thought, I'll do a marathon in November, and then I did a 50K race in December. And then it was January, and I have Carlsbad, California, half or full marathon with clients. And then we're like, there's a 50K trail run in February. Well, I haven't done anything since.
Burned all your matches.
Yeah, I did it too much. And then when you're working full time, that's why I'm, sharing my story, and life is not a race, because that's what happens. And I think what I want to get across to our listeners is post Ironman and all those Ironman triathletes, what do you do afterwards? It is, how do you really know how to repair and recover and reset your body? But because we don't know how to be still, we don't know how not to exercise. And going out for a walk or a 30-minute little jog, people think, well, why bother? And they just do more than that. So I think it's so important to take that recovery time and make sure your body is rebuilding itself at a cellular level before we start pushing it again. Because you look at what everyone did the last 6 months or more than that, and they just never give it a vacation, because our type A personalities, I don't think we know what that means to just exercise 30, 45 minutes a day.
Well, and when you're in that world of getting ready for an Ironman, it seems like it sort of becomes your norm, those huge volumes and long workouts and the speed work and everything you do. And even the race itself has sort of become normalized. Like, the first years of Ironman, everybody was amazed that people could actually even do it. Now it's sort of like everybody knows somebody who's done one, or people have done, 10 themselves. And so you have to kind of reset that gauge of what's normal and what's healthy in terms of exercise and intensity and length of workouts and stuff, so that your body, like you said, can recover. Otherwise, you just are on this gargantuan schedule all the time, and eventually most people do have a kind of a crash, like a real crisis crash at some point, if they don't honor that humanness that we have.
Yeah. So Mats, what are you going to do off season now?
I don't know. I mean, not race too much, not be structured. I mean, I think that emotional side of it is equally important. Somehow, I mean, after a few good months of really structured and high volume, training, there's this emotional drain. Like I feel like, you start to, every once in a while you'll have these mornings where you're like, man, I really don't want to get up early and go to the pool. Like I just don't have it in me. And it's not necessarily because you're tired, but it's just because you're emotionally just exhausted from maintaining that high level of focus. And I think that's going to be key for me. Maybe go for a bike ride, but just go take it easy and go ride with your friends. Go do your favorite rides and enjoy them for, the beautiful places they are, rather than, how much you're killing yourself.
Yeah. And it's so nice too. It's like it becomes so much fun, enjoyable, and you're a happy place, and just you more observant maybe into the environment. And you're just like, I feel good. This is my break. This is
absolutely
why I love to do this. So, well, I thank you so much for your time today, guys, to help people learn more about the Ironman World Championship 40th anniversary and the Mark Allen coaching program and father-son duo. Mark, how can people get some coaching tips and training and maybe some off-season workshops?
Yeah, you can go to my new coaching app is up on Final Surge. So if you go to finalsurge.com /MarkAllen/plans. You'll see all the offering that I have. We're going to have some pretty cool off-season stuff coming up on that, so stay tuned. And then for sure, if you're interested in coming to one of the Fit Soul Fit Body retreats, we have one in February in Santa Cruz, another one in March at the Kripalu Institute of Yoga and Health back in Massachusetts. You can see those by going to shamanism.com and go to upcoming programs, and you'll see those two down there. They're great. It's a good way to not only get information on how to train wisely and smart and sustainably, but also how to, tune your inner environment, your inner character to your goals, and to have a more positive outlook on life and to be healthier and happier, which I think those are things we all would love to have more of. So,
and that's a good way to start the year off too, and a new training schedule and a different approach to it, I would think.
Absolutely.
So, well, good guys. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Matt, and to you, Mark, as well. And I know it's probably a good vacation for both of you after a busy week in Hawaii for the Ironman week. So it was crazy.
Yep, we're living the good life now.
All right. Thanks you.
For having us on, Debbie.
All righty. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.